Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show with Aditya. A half an hour show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday in association with Dusra.net, the number one website. This is episode 124 on the 14th of October 2019, and welcome to the most loved talk show in India. Unless you are a direct stakeholder when it comes to sports matches in India. This would include the match officials like the referees, the umpires, the other officials, the organizers in terms of those league, the owners of the various sporting teams, the various sponsors involved in the conduct of the particular match, along with the players, of course, and some VIPs invited to watch the event, that is, the very irritating persons. As a spectator, it is a nightmare to watch a match in India. Partial security measures force you to leave for the stadium hours in advance. Then you have to be a part of the long crowds to enter the stadium. Transportation is also a night. The police take security measures and cordon off the roads leading to the stadium. If you are traveling by your own personal vehicle, the parking lots are miles away from the actual stadium, and there is a lack of seamless para transit connectivity, that is the transit buses or the auto rickshaws and others, while going towards the stadium after watching the match and also coming back. And somehow, by some superhuman effort, you manage to reach the stadium. The entry into the stadium can take hours. They ask you to remove all objects from your person except your mobile phone and your clothes. Well, this is a good measure, but then it has to be done in a more formal and organized manner. There is utter chaos while entering the stadium, and then your nightmare will depend on the nature of the sport. If it's a football match, which lasts between 60 to 90 minutes respectively, then one can still go without having any snacks. But if it's a cricket match, which we know can go on for half your day, then snacks become a very important part of surviving the heat and other oppressive condition. In short, the ticketing price is not directly proportional to the services provided. If you get up from your seat for snacks and drinks, then you know that your seat will be taken. And even if by some chance the vendor comes to your seat with snacks and drinks, even these vendors are aware of the fact that a ticket costs around 5,000 to 6,000 rupees, and they know that people are not in the mood to bargain about the cost of the drinks or the snacks. We are ready to pay any amount so that we can enjoy the match and not bother about the money spent or time bargaining about the cost of the drinks or the snacks. The organizers are never concerned about the spectators. Poor transportation facilities. I can give an example. I went to Pune to watch a match. I wasn't aware that the stadium was outside the city on the expressway, but I was aware about how much time it would take for an individual to enter the stadium. So I started 90 minutes prior to the match. But to my shock, the route towards the stadium was so ambiguous and it was not properly laid out that it took me almost 70 minutes to reach the stadium itself. For me, it wasn't about missing the match or watching the match, but trying to have a smooth experience prior to it. But thanks to where the stadium was and the lack of transport facilities and the way the route had been constructed, that we had to go through the slip road and then After that, there was a massive traffic jam there. And after 70 minutes of this torturous journey, I finally reached the stadium. As I walked towards the stadium, there was this bald patch of ground. It was full of cobbles and stones, and anybody could have injured themselves if they had fallen on those stones. But that part of the ground outside the ground wasn't smoothed out properly. So I did see a few individuals slip and injure themselves. But it wasn't done. I had another kilometer to walk inside the stadium in that weather. After encountering all this, I reach inside the stadium. I go through the process of security checks and getting my ticket barcoded so that I have a legal entry. So as I descended down towards my designated seat, there were no railings on each side so that one could hold and go because the steps were narrow, they were slippery, it was difficult to climb down. Yet I managed to do that, and then I sat in my seat. When the match got over and I was ready to go back out, even that process was not smooth. I finally got out of the stadium, went out, went through that bald patch, and outside there were no lights to help people navigate their way towards the parking lot. As I said, there is no public transportation available. There are no shuttle buses, so one has to arrange for their own private vehicles or taxis. So I called my taxi driver and it took him almost 45 minutes to maneuver his way out of the parking lot. And the worst part is I had to wait in a dimly lit road. I had to wait for cars to come out. As I would see cars coming out, there were no seats for one to sit so that one could wait for the car to come out. After 45 minutes, the car finally came out, and the police or the individuals or the parking attendants were rude. They were not allowing cars to wait on the road so that one could get inside smoothly and comfortably. They were quickly rushing the cars. So this is where my experience was something that I will never come back to this particular stadium again. I have had some good experiences. I went to watch a World Cup match in Chennai. That was a slightly better experience because the stadium was right in the middle of the city. The ushers, the security were polite and civil. They were not pushing and shoving people to get inside the stadium so quickly. I took a taxi right to the gate of the stadium, and I didn't have to stand on the road for more than 10 to 15 minutes waiting to enter the stadium. I had a similar experience in Mohali when I went to watch a match there. I was allowed to take my car inside the gate of the stadium citing special reasons. Despite these two memorable experiences of to and fro from the stadium apart from watching the match, my experience has not been memorable. The authorities have to change their attitude as far as the spectators are concerned because they know that if the ground is empty, there will be no tickets sold, no gate money, so no revenue for the stadium. Though there might be a couple of sponsorships, but without individuals watching the match, there is no fun in having a match. So without compromising the idea of security, they have to be careful as to how they treat the spectators. There has to be a parking lot built inside the stadium so that individuals can get their cars and park their cars inside the parking lot. The parking fees should be a part of the fees of the match. But if building a parking lot is not possible due to security and other logistical reasons, then they have to work on and coordinate with the police and other authorities as to how they can give a smooth and a memorable experience to the individuals watching the match. We cannot have a parking lot 2 kilometers away from the actual ground and then create confusion as to how one would enter the stadium, or they can coordinate with the metro authorities and have a metro station right under the stadium so that people can descend, or have at least bus stands there. If not private vehicles, they should at least allow transport, that is, the taxis, the buses, and other such para transit vehicles inside the stadium. Another measure could be that they can scan the ticket right where you take your paratransit vehicles, that is, the shuttle buses. There they should have an individual who will scan our ticket so that the shuttle buses take us right till our seats. The vendors they give contract to, as far as the quality of food is concerned, should improve. Even here, the food should be a part of the ticket. One does not need to pay separately for food. Even the spectators should be given a VIP treatment, and it should not be limited to only the sponsors or the administrators or the players or any other direct stakeholder. Because when you read in the newspapers the restrictions imposed by the police as to these roads are closed, these roads are restricted, vehicles are not allowed from this hour to this hour, it discourages people to go and watch the match. Because if the traveling time will take 4 hours, then nobody will want to face another 4 hours watching the match. This attitude needs to change, and it needs to change very quickly. Sports commentary, be it audio or video, is a very important part of the experience of enjoying a sports match. So, for every sport, there is a different experience. Like for fast sports like hockey, football, basketball, tennis, badminton, which finish before you can blink an eye, there is no time for the sports commentators to be engaged in small talk. They have to be on the ball every second of the match. So, therefore, listening to them talking about just the match and not about the personality of the players is a refreshing one. But in cricket, we say that cricket is a very fast game, but that is an oxymoron. Cricket, along with baseball, is the slowest game on the planet. Tennis can also take hours, but the quality of the commentary in tennis never waters down compared to the quality of commentary in cricket. We might have a recession as far as economy is concerned, or a slowdown in the auto sector, but right now there is a recession and a slowdown in sports commentary, especially cricket. Like a broken record, they keep repeating the same things again and again. Is it due to lack of training, or just due to lack of new vocabulary? For me, it's both. Lack of training is evident in the cricket commentators, especially from India, and lack of vocabulary is there because they have no new words, nothing new to discuss at any point in time. And like in other domains, we use the word modern, they also have started using this word modern without having any idea what does the word modern mean. The word modern is a misnomer. Modern is relative, but the lack of a proper structure and understanding of vocabulary forces them to repeat the word modern. And then, of course, white ball, red ball, finger spinner, leg spinner, there is nothing more than this in their script. Just as one reiterates that there is a need to look beyond a certain player or players, and I won't name them, similarly, there is a need to move beyond certain commentators who have been there for more than 4 decades. I won't name the individual, but we all know who this individual is. This propensity to hark back and ride on the glory of their good old days just doesn't seem to end. They keep going back to their good old days. when they used to play, their experience. Yes, your experience is respected, but try and understand what the current players are going through. Don't start comparing and don't get into this habit of modernism, because for that player who retired 4 decades ago and today, there is no difference as far as the idea of modernism is concerned. 1987 was as modern as 2019. And it takes another worse turn when these same commentators turn coaches. Despite the fact that they know that they had made mistakes during their playing days, when they see the current player make a mistake, for example, get out for 0 runs, or drop a catch, or bowl a bad delivery, they go into this advisory that no, you should not do this. They expect a near robotic performance from these players when these commentators themselves are aware that they were not the best of the lot during the start of their careers. They had their ups and downs, but there is no empathy. And if there is no empathy, then these commentators need to go through some ethics and empathy classes. There should be a clause in their contract that if you're too rude towards a player, or if you're not empathetic enough, or if you don't understand what the player is going through, and the fact that you went through the same stage yourself, then you have no right to comment on that person's apparent failures. But if you do so, your contract will be terminated. So, how do you counter this recession and slowdown in commentary? Simple, just change the entire batch of commentators, bring in a fresh batch, fresh graduates, especially in broadcasting, even if they haven't played a match in their lives, or recently retired sports person have to go through mandatory 6 months of training. Just like any other profession, there should be an internship or a probation period, especially for the freshly retired cricketers turned commentators. It means that they will not be paid for the first 6 months. They will have to take care of the expenses on their own. In fact, the ones with no cricketing experience or no sporting experience but a lot of broadcasting experience should be their supervisors and give a monthly or a weekly report on their performance. And if the performance is not satisfactory, then the contract is liable to be terminated, because unless such radical changes take place, the quality of commentary, especially in cricket, where you have to talk about everything under the sun because of the time you have in between, will decline as rapidly as a company which loses its sponsors and investors and becomes bankrupt. Welcome to part 2 of this iconic episode. Like a repeat telecast, the moment Diwali approaches, it's the same old story every year. The Delhi air suddenly turns poor, and how do we measure this? By those AQI meters. We depend on that air quality index, and then we take it as a gospel that yes, if it reaches a certain level, the red level, then the air quality is poor. Whatever are the reasons for the same, why are we only focused on the air quality or the air pollution? Why not on the noise pollution? Why not be so radical about the elements that lead to noise pollution, or even might limit the number of cars on the road in a day, but it will not limit the number of times people honk? Just because you are in India, why should honking in your vehicles become an accepted part of the societal norms? Why are we now getting used to this? One cannot have noise pollution and air pollution and other kinds of pollution in isolation by being fixated on the city's air quality, which will, as always, plummet to low and will only get worse. We are ignoring another facet which can affect an individual. Your lungs are not the only important organ in your body. What about your ears? Introduction of green crackers, which has less of barium nitrate, which will reduce the pollutants in the air, will have a drop in the air pollution. But what about the noise emitting from the crackers itself? Maybe just as we had a partial awakening towards the air quality and pollutants, maybe 15 years or 100 years from now, we will wake up to the disastrous effects of noise pollution that includes honking of the cars, the generators, the crackers itself. Just as we have air quality monitors, maybe one day we will have sound quality monitors as well. We all know this is at a very superficial level despite our efforts towards the same. Are not your ears as important as your lungs? We are obsessed with bursting crackers. Yes, that will never go away. So we introduced green crackers which will reduce the air pollution, as I said before. But what about the noise pollution? What about having crackers which can have a combination of being not too loud and not having too many pollutants? What about having silent crackers? Yes, it looks like an oxymoron. During Diwali, when the crackers are being burst, be it today or it was 100 years ago, and yes, pollution was a major factor, but if you're in your home trying to sleep, you will not sleep not because of the air pollutants but because of the noise pollution. It's difficult to sleep. Why can't we have a concern towards both? Same is the issue towards vehicles. Are we only concerned about the one aspect of the pollution emanating from the vehicles, that is the gases, or what about the honking on the roads, or what about the noise of the cars, the buses, and other street traffic? Just like being fit, having a plastic free environment, and having green crackers, which is a part of one's behavioral change, why can't we have a campaign for reducing noise pollution, especially by the vehicles? And when I say vehicles, I mean the private vehicles, the public transport that includes the taxis and the much irritant autos. But the honking will only reduce if we learn to follow traffic rules, be in our lane. When you don't follow traffic rules, when you park at wrong places, the other vehicle driver is forced to honk, and that has become an accepted norm. But I don't accept this accepted norm. Honking has to be as serious as an offense as talking on the mobile phones while driving, or running red lights, or not having your registration papers or your pollution under control certificate. There should be a honking under control certificate. Honking is directly proportional to one's patience as well. Green light isn't signal that people are in a rush to move on. Give a few seconds for the vehicles ahead of you to start, then move on. There is no point honking. Or if a vehicle is stranded in front of you, don't show your authority by just honking for the sake of honking, because this helps no one. So if our concern about air pollution is at an all-time high, then the same should be about noise pollution, which means honking from the cars, the noise of the crackers, and other elements. All these campaigns can only be effective if they are run not only in a parallel fashion, but they have to complement each other. Otherwise, running such campaigns in isolation or for the sake of running them is a farce and a waste. If you are concerned about the AQI, then you should also be concerned about the decibel level. Parking has always been a hot and a debatable topic in cities in India. So the Supreme Court, as always, has now asked the Metro Authority as to what is the condition of the parking space in metro station. While this is a pertinent and an important question, my question is, why wasn't the parking part thought about while building metro stations? Why didn't the Metro Authority coordinate with other transportation department so that they could have such a smooth coordination that the taxis, the buses could have a proper parking space? Or the approach road should be in a manner like it is on the railway stations or at the airport. And it is time that we stop hiding behind the excuse of jurisdiction and what kind of authority does one department have over facilities, and what department can provide the same facilities without having the ego of authority. Since the metro stations are not near your home, you have to walk. Therefore, the last mile connectivity is important, and this is what the Supreme Court is asking the metro department. With no or less parking at metro stations, these last mile connectivity services, which are now dubbed as para-transit vehicles, that is, the taxis, the irritating autos and cycle rickshaws, park on the road, which leads to traffic jams, and then we question what is the solution. Has this question come in too late while questioning about the lack of last mile connectivity? Yes, this question has come in too late, because one of the clauses of building a metro station should have been to have such last mile connectivity and providing adequate parking services for your private vehicles and of course the public transport vehicle. But the dilemma is that design and control of road space over and above the station infrastructure is not within the purview of the DMR, and this calls for lack of interagency cooperation. While we cannot go back on what has been done in the older metro stations, the infrastructure remains as what it is, and the parking inadequacy for such vehicles will continue. But while building newer metro stations where only the land has been taken and nothing else has been done, they need to designate a certain parking space for the transport, just as they do in airports. They can take a cue from how there is a smooth transition as far as the airport is concerned. When we come out from the airport, we directly go towards the taxi stand. There is a smooth transition, so they can take an idea from how this happens when it comes to railways and airports. Well, we can debate over the fact that there is one airport and there are multiple metro stations, but this is the best way to do it. And as I said before, we have work and look for interagency symbiosis and not have a fallout over petty issues. This ends episode number 124 on the 14th of October 2019. I will be back on Wednesday with another milestone episode, that is episode number 125. Till then, India's favorite host bids you a very good night. Please send your valuable suggestions through your comments and audio recording to the email ID adityatherewriter@gmail.com. You can also like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and Facebook page, and stay tuned for the next episode.